final in France, the trains were on strike. It was impossible to get a train to their finals venue. People were walking, taking buses. There were people who were unknown to the train drivers driving trains. You know, you took your life in your own hands to get out there. It was an absolute disaster. The French media took it upon themselves to write up how fantastic the final had been. It was a matter of national pride. Why would the French media want to write up the fact that the trains weren't working? It might portray France in a bad light internationally. Unfortunately, our approach in New Zealand is to latch on to, it's okay, it looks like this is all going to go terribly badly, we better promote that. So there was, thankfully for us in many ways, a lot of media coverage in New Zealand about the issues in Auckland, but very little pick up globally. You know, they really focused on how well the rugby had gone. My task after opening night was to make sure that our team focused on 7 other games that had to be delivered around the country that weekend. You know, there was no time to dwell on what had happened in Auckland, but also put in place some people to sit alongside government and ATEED in Auckland to try and work through what we were going to do to make sure that the waterfront was a fantastic success going forward. And in that regard, we had fantastic political support from Minister McCulley. There was a lot of tension around that, but he was just absolutely adamant that downtown Auckland was going to work, and I'll show you a DVD at the end which highlights that. Just something in terms of the age that we live in, there's information everywhere. I'd be sitting with government ministers in VIP lounges, and they would be getting tweets from people telling them that the ground is half empty and people aren't going to get in before kick-off and so on. And he'd be saying to me, "Nigel, is this right?" And I said, "No, we're really comfortable where things are at." So you do need processes to try and just screen out, particularly from key decision makers, just that mass of information that's just flying around. And finally, as I've said, guard against complacency. It's not over until it's over. You know, we started to have people wandering into the main operations centre with a bit of a saunter in their step, you know, as we headed into the final week. Got into the final day, and the power went off in Kingsland during the day. You know, I was sitting in the crowd, and I rang the control room, and I said to Dave Sims, who was our match manager, "Is that smoke drifting over the ground, Dave?" You know, and he said, "No, I don't think it is, Nige, but thanks for mentioning it." And you know, so we knew absolutely that until the final team from offshore got on the plane, it wasn't over for us. And I guess for us, really, the time that you could start to relax was when the parades happened. You know, when Richie and the boys went around the country, the volunteers obviously able to be part of that, and we could sit down and reflect on a job well done. Just very quickly, in terms of key success factors, firstly, I think we energised the stadium of 4 million, and the main credit in many ways for that has to go to Martin Snedden. You know, as I said, we decided early that we were going to do far more than run a rugby tournament, and Martin's approach in terms of communicating with the public, using the media and bringing people along in that stadium of 4 million was just absolutely fundamental in terms of delivery of the tournament. It's important with every event, I think, in the lead up to be seen to be on track, to have a whole range of milestones. You know, we did 2 years to go, 1 year to go, 200 days, 100 days. You know, it's really important that you get people confident that you are doing well. We always knew that we needed to start strongly. It's why we spent so much time on trying to make sure that we had a fantastic opening ceremony. We wanted people in that opening weekend to sit there and say, "That's just great." Understanding the importance of the media, that's not just about Martin giving lots of press conferences. It's about media operations. For the first World Cup ever, we fed the media at all the venues. They had a full meal. We provided media transport. Our IT systems and the support for them at venues was better than any other World Cup before. We had worked with Tourism New Zealand, so you know the number of media, you could loosely call them junkets, I guess, that they were taken on in terms of seeing what New Zealand had to offer, just phenomenal. And we knew that they just running great rugby games wasn't going to be enough. We needed them on side so that they were in a really positive frame of mind when they were writing about those rugby games. The volunteer program, undoubtedly a highlight of the tournament, and in many ways volunteers and the New Zealand psyche, being able to let New Zealanders show the world that they're great hosts, was one of the fantastic things about the tournament. From the start, we were committed to making sure that it was not your typical rugby experience. It was more the only thing in New Zealand rugby previously that it was kind of like, I guess, was the Sevens in Wellington, and we wanted venues to look different. We wanted the sports presentation to be different. We wanted fans to be encouraged to dress up and support teams, to yell and scream and so on. And so people arrived at Eden Park and they could instantly see a massive stand, but it was dressed in Rugby World Cup look and feel and inside the venues. That's my son standing in the middle there on the way to a game in Wellington, but there were hundreds of thousands of Kiwis wearing buckets on their heads, painting their faces, cheering for countries that before World Cup they'd never even heard of. And part of that was the atmosphere in the stadia, and the government in producing thousands of kilometres of bunting and so on and so forth. We were really lucky. We had strong non-partisan political support. Local communities, both large and small, bought into delivery. Fan zones in Auckland and Wellington were fantastic. 1 million people visited Queen's Wharf during the tournament. The fan walk from downtown Auckland to Eden Park, 41,000 walked on it on the night of the final, and they estimated that about 25,000 of those 41,000 had match tickets. The others just walked it because they wanted to walk the fan trail. If you'd said that to Aucklanders 6 months before the tournament, they would have thought you were absolutely raving mad. That people would walk from downtown Auckland to Eden Park. There was a fan zone in Waipukurau where people were gathering in downtown Waipukurau to watch games together. Hunterville and almost every small town in New Zealand bought into the banner program, so they had the same banners as Auckland and as Wellington and so on. You can never practice enough. We practiced and we practiced and we practiced some more, and each time you learnt something different. You learnt that your contingency plan wasn't going to work and you were going to have to tweak it. And finally, I think every event needs a bit of luck. One of the problems on the opening night in Auckland was it was probably the nicest day in Auckland that there'd been for months. But that was fantastic. We got this opening ceremony where we had aerial stuff going on in that opening ceremony where if the wind had been above 15 knots, we were going to have to cancel it. And I can tell you the statistical analysis of wind in September is not that good in Auckland, but it was beautifully still. The teams played well. There were lots of upsets. There was a lot of interest in the rugby. And then obviously the All Blacks winning. And not something you could ever bargain on, but really added the icing on the cake in terms of the tournament. Just very, very quickly, so was it a success? We thought we would sell about 1.3 million tickets, and we sold 1.35, so a little over that. We thought at the beginning of the tournament, of the bid, that we'd get 60,000 international visitors. We got 133,000. $168.5 million worth of ticket sales, and with 2 days to go, Shane and the team passed that, and we ended up selling 169 million. It's 10 times more than the tickets that were sold for the Lions tour. So just, absolutely phenomenal. Massive presence on Facebook. The tournament was viewed in 207 territories. It was the most watched TV event in New Zealand television history. Of people watching TV at the time, 98% of them were watching Rugby World Cup. I have to say, given that it was on TV1, TV3, Māori TV and Sky, it was pretty challenging to find something else to watch. But phenomenally, really, in France, 82% of the available audience was also watching the rugby. 60% increase in the hours viewed globally compared to 2007. Just down on the gross revenue for the IRB on France. And that was, in the middle of a global recession in a tiny country at the bottom of the world as opposed to France, a massive country in its own right in the heart of the EU and great broadcasting zones. An amazing result. The IRB earned £10 million more than they were budgeting to make from the tournament. We in New Zealand, we still lost money, but we did significantly better than we'd budgeted to do. So there was no blowout, and MasterCard estimated $750 million worth of direct economic benefit for the country. But for me, I guess the main thing was just, I think, going back to our vision. People will look back on Rugby World Cup, as was reflected on last night, and say that was a fantastic, not rugby tournament particularly, a fantastic event, and one of those defining moments in New Zealand's history. And for all of us who were lucky enough, and it was a real privilege to be able to work on Rugby World Cup, I think that's the measure that we will hold most dear. And obviously, All Blacks winning was pretty nice too. Just very, very quickly to close, and then if we have got a bit of time, I'm happy to answer questions. But what I'd like to just show you is a DVD made by I think he's a wedding photographer of all things, in Auckland. Some of you may have seen this. It was on YouTube. It was filmed on the Auckland waterfront on the afternoon and the night of the final, and I think it really captures what Rugby World Cup and the All Blacks playing in the final meant to New Zealanders at that time.
The climax of the 2011 Rugby World Cup final. This is a nervous excitement. A World Cup final doesn't come around very often. This team, well, they could silence a lot of critics tonight. This team here is very focused, and they are very keen to get their hands on a trophy that this country hasn't held for 24 years. And the All Blacks, well, this is it. This is it. A World Cup final. So first real opportunity for the All Blacks, deep in the red zone, going to a full line-out option. And the throw is good. Pops it off try. Tony Woodcock. There's the first try of the final. What a move. And the ball lost forward, and now the All Blacks have a player down, and it's Aaron Cruden. And well, cometh the hour. Well, cometh the man. Number 4, 5'8" for the All Blacks. What a twist of fate. Unbelievable. This is big a kick as you'll ever get. Here's his kick. And he's nailed it. And the All Blacks now have an 8-point lead in the game. Oh, this game is on an absolute knife edge. Now, yes, really. Away it goes to Trendon Roosery. Dusatois! Dusatois, the captain! France are back.
Now he's ready to make the move, and he's coming.
Downfield, a little bit of pressure. This crowd is on the edge of their seat. Ellis. This is tension. Boy.
So I don't know how we're placed for time. Guys, I'm happy to answer questions if there are any, but if we're up,
Few questions.
Few questions. Questions, anybody? Of course.
Nigel, I asked you last... Hi Nigel, Gareth here. I asked you this last night, but it was a topic of further discussion. We've all been involved in events and you build up over a period of time, not the time you had. You run the event, you get to the end of the weekend, you run on adrenaline and it's bloody hard to come down. What do you do after that number of years and then you run an event like that? Just personally, how do you come down from that?
Well, for me personally, the next couple of months after the World Cup, I had to say farewell to all my staff, basically. So I went from a permanent team of a little over 100, I guess, around tournament time, to a team of 3 by Christmas. And you know, you owe it to those people to keep your professionalism and work through a debrief process with them all, and frankly do your best to try to find them jobs, because for the internationals it wasn't really a problem. We've got, I think there are about 20 people who work for me who are working on the Olympics, and there are people scattered all over the globe. But for the Kiwis, it's a lot harder. So in that first period through to Christmas, it was just really managing that process. Then you know, I hadn't seen my wife and kids too much in 2011, so we just got in a camper van and drove around New Zealand for the school holidays. I took the whole school holidays off, and you just got to reconnect with different things. I think the time that I found most hard, actually, we did a debrief with the English in February. Therese, Shane, Martin and I flew across to London, and there were some things that they were interested in, but my abiding memory of that is it's their game now. You know, it's our moment's gone. And so it was after that really that you start to think, okay, well, that was fantastic. We'll never replace those memories, but you need to get on and plan the rest of your life. You know, so not immediate for me post tournament. It really was early this year.
Any more questions? Of course, Rowdy.
Nigel, what was your favourite moment of the
I had a lot of favourite moments. The favourite moment in a game was the second weekend when the Irish beat the Australians at Eden Park. You know, that was just not so much that the Australians lost. It was just such a fantastic atmosphere in that ground. It was just absolutely amazing. I had my tournament time matchday role. You know, Sauce mentioned last night that I co-opted him in to help, and we basically had delivery teams in venues, and then I supplemented that with myself, a guy called Gavin McFadgen, who was our security manager, again with a bit of grey hair, and with Sauce, just so we had a really senior member of management on site at every game. And I did all the games at Eden Park, and I'd finish up there about 2 o'clock in the morning, and each time you'd finish up there was a volunteer who'd drive me home, and you know, that it was just amazing. And you'd say, you know, why do you want to be out here waiting for me to drive me back to an apartment in downtown Auckland? And you know, they just wanted to be part of it, and that was a really special time as well.
Anyone else with that burning question? Fantastic. Nigel, thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
That still gives me goosebumps, and